welcome back. Chapter 21 Charlie. Harriet's artistic eccentricities easily made her one of the most fascinating women I ever met. Her big heart and open arm welcome made it impossible not to fall in love with her instantly. She was the grandmother I'd never been allowed to have, and she filled the hole in my life previously occupied by Juanita. My mother had pretended her own parents were dead until she found herself homeless and my father's address had become the federal penitentiary. My paternal grandparents had both passed away before I was born, so grandmotherly figures were few and far between in my life. Harriet had emerged from her studio shortly after Khan had dropped me off, and she uncorked a bottle of champagne. When I asked why we were celebrating, she simply said, "Because we can." I followed her into the garden oasis, more than ready to fill my glass. I told myself it was because I had a full day off tomorrow, but part of me wanted to get just drunk enough to not miss seeing Simon today. Yesterday, we grabbed dinner at a little hole in the wall gumbo place, and he'd been charming as hell, playing with my fingers, feeding me bites of his food, and basically ensuring that I need a change of panties after dinner. If it had been the type of restaurants that have tablecloths, I would have considered crawling under it. But it wasn't. And that sneaky bastard knew exactly what he was doing. He gave me a chaste peck on the cheek when he dropped me off at Voodoo. I was ready to maul him in front of God and everyone. When I asked him if he'd have time for dinner on Friday during my 2 hour break between shifts, he said he was busy. No other explanation, just busy. After the newspaper incident, I didn't think he was going to any kind of event with Vanessa, but I could feel my claws coming out at the thought of all the other things he could be doing. I was off kilter all night, trying to give change to someone who paid with a credit card, double booking an appointment and having to call one guy back to reschedule. It was like the Simon Duchess's effect had sucked 40 IQ points straight out of my brain. Sneaky bastard. Although, all through my Friday shift at the Dirty Dog and Voodoo, I stared at my cheap cell phone and willed it to ring. I checked the balance of my minutes 4 times. Yep, had plenty now that I wasn't calling the clinic every 5 minutes for an update on Huck. No word from Simon. I wanted to text him, but of course, my piece of shit phone was barely capable, and I hadn't been willing to pay the extra fee for that particular feature. So now I was guzzling Harriet's second bottle of good champagne like it was Boone's Farms and ranting about how men were sneaky and manipulative, getting you all wound up and not putting out until you spill all your deepest, darkest secrets. Harriet was double over laughing at my tirade, paint smeared shirt flapping in the night breeze. Through the cackle of her laughter, I heard a clanking sound coming from the iron gate. What the hell? I stumbled out of my chair toward the narrow corridor and saw a large form blocking the light from the street lamp. "Who is it? What the hell do you want?" I yelled in the direction of the gates, still coming off my rant. "It's Simon, and I thought I made it pretty clear I wanted you. I'll even put out, with or without the secrets." Ooh, he heard. Fuck. My face heated, and I hadn't tried to keep my outburst quiet, but I had no idea that I'd been so loud. Maybe there was a chance. I was that loud? I asked Harriet, hoping I misheard him. "I'm pretty sure they could hear you a block away, dear." "Shit. Who's out there?" Harriet asked. "A friend," I replied as I stalked down the corridor to the gate, mumbling to myself, the sneaky, manipulative guy who wouldn't put out. "I already said I would, babe." Fuck, he heard that too. He must have been there for a while then. "Yeah," Simon replied, smile spreading across his face. Damn it, I hadn't meant to say that out loud. "I'm too drunk to deal with you," I said. "Let me in, Charlie. I missed you today." I melted against the wall of the narrow passageway, soaking up his words, the exact ones I needed to hear. I twisted the lock and Simon swung the gate open and shut it behind him. He crowded me against the wall and cupped my face with both hands. I barely registered his intent before he bent to kiss me. Not a chase peck this time. An all-consuming, devastating, soul-stilling kiss. I clung to his shoulders as he slid one hand down to cup my ass and pull me closer. Well, now, Harriet interrupted. Seems you might have to retract your complaints, dear. You think? Simon's head jerked up and I fell against him. He tucked me into his side and held out a hand to Harriet. Simon, Duchesses, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you. Harriet clasped Simon's hand with her paint-smudged one. Likewise, I'm Harriet Sullivan, and I believe this is my cue to head back inside. Charlotte, darling, I'm happy to keep an eye on Huckleberry tonight if you decide to stay upstairs. I'll even let him out in the morning. I sucked in a breath. I wasn't drunk enough to miss the fact that Harriet had just called me by my real name. She did. Her name is Charlotte. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, let me do that again. I sucked in a breath. I wasn't drunk enough to miss the fact that Harriet had just called me by my real name. Simon stiffened. He hadn't missed it either. Thanks. Good night, Harriet. She shuffled away and we didn't speak until we heard the back door close. I like Charlotte, but I think Charlie suits you better. In the dark corridor, I couldn't make out Simon's expression, but he didn't sound angry. My drunken self needed to know conclusively. Are you mad? He pulled away, and I wondered if that was his answer. Maybe he'd leave and I'd never see him again. Girl, she's a negative kind of person like right now. Okay. Okay. He pulled away, and I wondered if that was his answer. Maybe he'd leave and I'd never see him again. My heart clenched at the thought. If he couldn't handle something small like this, then I guess it was better to know now. But he didn't leave. Instead, he led me out of the narrow passageway into the garden oasis and swung me up in his arm. Do you have the keys to your place? It's unlocked. He grumbled at that and carried me up the spiral staircase. I buried my head in the crook of his neck and held on tight, praying he wouldn't drop me. I got you, babe. Don't worry. He pushed open the door and flipped on the light before carrying me directly into my bedroom and setting me on the bed. He switched on my bedside lamp and I finally saw his face clearly. My head was fuzzy from the champagne, but he really didn't look angry. He looked thoughtful. Ooh. Maybe. Damn it. Why did I drink so much? He reached a hand back and tugged his shirt over his head. I drank in his tan skin and rippling muscles. Excuse me. He truly was a beautiful man. He kicked off his shoes and knelt at my feet to pull off my chucks without untying the laces. It was a staggering realization to my champagne-soaked brain that he might have noticed I never untied them. What other details about me had he noticed that no one else would? I was crazy to think he'd never find out the truth. I never should have let it get this far. But how could I stop myself? He was so perfectly imperfect, and I wanted all of him for every second I could steal. He reached for his belt and paused. I'm staying tonight. It wasn't a question. Okay. I reached for the hem of my shirt and started to drag it upwards. He reached out and covered my hand with his to stop me. But if you take that off, I'm not going to be able to stop myself from having you. Good. I yanked at his grip, trying to get the shirt off. He squeezed my hand. No, not tonight. The first time we're together, you're going to be stone cold sober. because I want you to remember every single thing I do to you. Okay, Simon. Kudos, you get more brownie points for that. My insides turned hot and liquid. A pulse thumbed through my legs. You already told me you'd put out. No takebacks, it's not fair. He leaned down and brushed his 5 o'clock shadow against my cheek before saying into my ear, tough shit. He pulled back and I stuck out my lips and pouted. Simon caught it between his teeth and tugged before releasing it. So fucking tempting, you have no idea. He spun and looked at my bureau. Pajama pants? And I know you own them. I distinctively recall a striptease that involved a pair. I huffed. Second drawer from the bottom. He opened the drawer, pulled out a silky pink pair, and tossed them at me. I'll be right back. You better not be naked. You're such a hard-ass prude, Mr. Dutchison. He took a step toward the doorway and gripped the top of the frame. His tongue swiped across his bottom lip, and his hazel eyes shifted from playful to serious. You're worth the wait. He walked out the room, and I heard the bathroom door shut. I clutched the pajama pants in my fist as my heart tumbled further down the path of no return. A single thought crystallized in my head. Fuck, I could fall in love with this man. Chapter 22. Simon. I awoke as the sun was just starting to rise, but it wasn't a nightmare that woke me. It was the hot, wet suction. Oh. It was the hot, wet suction on my dick. I groaned, buried my hand in Charlotte's wild hair. He says Charlotte is marinating in that brain of his. Jesus, woman, holy shit. I jerked my hips as she hummed against my cock and her small, soft hand cupped my balls. Holy fuck. My breathing grew labored. The urge to come slammed into me, and I gently tried to tug her away. Baby, you gotta stop. She didn't stop. Instead, she took me deeper and worked me harder and faster. I couldn't hold back, so I just let it go. After she sat up and wiped the back of her hand across her mouth, she smiled at me. I'll be right back. She slipped out of the bedroom, and I heard the bathroom door shut and the water turn on. I tucked myself back into my boxer brief, laced my hands behind my head, and stared up at the skylight and the slanting ceiling above me. She'd already been passed out by the time I come out of the bathroom the night before, still in her jeans, pajamas clenched in her hand. I've been so gentlemanly as possible as I swapped out the jeans for her more comfortable sleepwear. I couldn't help but marvel at the pale, uninked skin of her legs. Next to her arms, they seemed almost unfinished. I tucked her into bed before slipping beneath the covers and pulling her against me. It was another solid night of uninterrupted sleep, until Charlie had decided to provide the world's best wake-up call. I heard the water turn off and she walked back into the bedroom. She bit her lip and her hair hung forward, obscuring part of her face. For the first time since I met her, she looked shy. I grinned. That was, hands down, the best way I've ever been woken up. Her smile reappeared. Yeah, babe, come here. I sat up, so I leaned against the headboard and held out an arm. She climbed back into bed and snuggled into my side. I tucked her under the covers. Best morning ever. I kissed her hair. So, tell me about Charlotte. Dun, 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 dun. She froze. She be thinking this man he just gonna let it fly. Not Simon. Okay, she froze, and I tightened my grip as she struggled uselessly against me. I spoke slowly, pitching my words so they would resonate in her ear. I don't care what your name is. I just want you. That's all. I don't care if you're Charlotte or Lee or anybody else. I just want to know you. She stopped struggling. I pulled back and looked down at her. I just want you to let me in, to trust me with a little piece of you. I tucked the unruly lock of purple hair behind her ears. I'm falling for a girl who won't even tell me where she's from. You think I'd care, but it doesn't matter a damn bit of a difference to me. Her mouth dropped open and her awkward eyes widened. Nothing you can tell me is going to change how I feel. Now, Charlie, this is the perfect moment for you to tell him. Let's see. We stared at each other for several beats before she spoke. The East Coast. Her voice was shaky and barely more than a breath. Finally, something. Figured you were a Yankee. I leaned down and kissed her, slowly, reverently, like I was learning her for the first time. And maybe I was. Her fingers gripped the back of my neck as she pressed closer. That fit perfectly with her plans because we were in leaving this bed without getting a hell of a lot closer, and not just in the physical sense. Ooh. She pulled back from the kiss and asked, "You're going to follow through this time or leave me hanging? Because I gotta tell you, I'm not sure I can survive that again." It was the opening I needed. What are you willing to give? Charlie pursed her lip before answering. What do you want? You. Done. Information about you, I clarified. Okay, Charlie. You can't play mind games with him because he's sharp, baby. Her expression turned guarded. I cupped her face and met her eyes. Simple shit, Charlie. That's all I want. It's not that hard. She broke my stare and I could almost hear the gears clicking in her head. Like what? She whispered. Favorite color? Her eyes snapped back up to mine, her surprise clear. She dragged her bottom lip beneath her teeth and let it slide free. The urge to kiss that gorgeous mouth of hers was intense, but I wanted to hear her answer more. All of them. A grin tugged at my lip, of course. One wasn't enough for her. I rolled and held myself above her. I leaned down and brushed a kiss across her forehead before pulling back to ask my next question. Winter or summer? Fall. New England fall. I kissed her nose. Baseball or football? Neither. Hockey. I kissed the corner of her mouth before murmuring, breaking my heart, babe. Don't ask if you can't handle the truth. She turned her head so my lips met hers squarely. Top Gun or Die Hard? Bruce Willis, definitely. I kissed her jaw. Flowers or chocolate? Sex. I chuckled against her neck and nudged her neck and dragged my teeth down the tendon. She shuddered. Sassy woman. Damn straight. I pulled back again and gripped the neck of her wife beater with both hands. Last question. I stretched the fabric to telegraph my intentions. The smile that spread across Charlie's face was pure sin. First impression when I walked in the door of Voodoo that night. Preppy douchebag. I shook my head because, well, I figured that's exactly what we look like. And then she added, and can I take him home? White hot needed flared in every cell of my body. What? Oh, white hot need flared in every cell of my body. I jerked my fist apart and tore her tank down the middle, leaving it in ragged shreds. Her high full breasts, tipped with those sexy ass hell piercings, were bare to my gaze, and my mouth. I reached down to draw a nipple into my mouth. She buried her hand in my hair and urged me closer. The time for questions was over. Okay, that's the end of chapter 22. Okay, it's getting closer to her having no other choice but to tell him, because Simon is not stupid. He's patient, and he gonna get it out of her, um, one way or the other. But the time is coming. He's asking the right questions. The thoughts, like I said, is in the back of his mind, marinating, and she's nervous and scared. I understand that, and I'm still gung ho for her to just tell him before he look for it. Okay, so there was no definition words in this video either. So I will see you in the next video, chapter 23. Bye.